Hello, this is Arlo Kilpatrick, and I'm the Erudite Cinephile, and welcome to the concluding video in my series on Hani Miletski's book, Understanding Bestiality and Zoophilia. The last few chapters of the book I'm not going to go into in great detail because A, they're much shorter than the other chapters, and B, there's not much actual data on zoophilia past or present, so really there's not that much to go over there. I will go over the bullet points of those chapters of the book and what conclusions one can draw from them, but I won't go into a detailed slideshow like I have been with the other data-filled chapters. So let's begin. Chapter 13 is all about whether there exists a sexual orientation toward animals. And to define a sexual orientation, as she has done earlier in the book, Miletski uses three different measures. There's affectational orientation, whether you feel emotionally attracted. There's sexual fantasy, whether you sexually fantasize about the object or subject of your devotion. And erotic orientation, whether you actually do have sex with these objects or subjects, these animals or people. And on all three counts, I believe it has been demonstrated that some people do feel this way. Some people, the majority, well, all of the participants had sex with animals according to their own testimony. And the vast majority both had sexual fantasies about animals and felt psychologically or emotionally attracted to them as well, which means that the orientation of zoosexuality, at least according to these people's testimony, does exist. Whether acting in accordance with that sexual orientation is right is another issue entirely, but at the very least I don't think I need to justify any further that yes, zoosexuals do exist, and when it comes to sexual orientation, it's really not all that different from being gay or straight or not necessarily transgendered, or bi or whatever. So, any discrimination against zoosexuality on the basis of it not being legitimate somehow needs to be justified in terms other than by saying, oh, that can't possibly be real. You need to make a moral argument, for example, that sex with animals is wrong because whatever reason, and I'm sure that those arguments do exist. I've examined a number of them on this channel, but I haven't gone into detail on my own ethical views. So, there's that. Just so you know, I'm going to be taking a little break after this video, just to recharge and figure out what I want to do next. But, in a couple of weeks' time, at most, I will be looking into some work by the bioethicist Peter Singer, who has ethics which I consider to be very close to my own in terms of how they're actually derived. Because I want to look into what my own ethical system is and how I justify things ethically, especially sex with animals. So, look forward to that later on. There were a number of limitations of this study. Mainly, it was a self-filled out questionnaire. These people only reported what they felt about themselves, if they even were truthful about that. And as a result, it's hard to take their conclusions about, for example, whether the animal enjoyed it or whether bestiality is a perversion, as seriously as one might be inclined to otherwise. This is all personal opinion, and as a result, it's hard to draw definite conclusions from it. Also, the sample size was so small, especially among women, that no general conclusions about the zoosexual population as a whole can really be made. You can make arguments that the evidence presented in this book points the way towards more research on zoosexuality later. For example, there is some evidence, however small, that the revelation of zoosexuality is not nearly so socially damning as one might expect it to be, but it's difficult to completely generalize that without more study. Also, keep in mind that Miss Miletski is a sex therapist, and as such, she has a certain bias against those who would misrepresent and misunderstand people different from them. To her, sex is pleasurable, and so long as people, or almost people as animals may be, are consenting to the activity, there's really no problem with it ethically. While I agree with that, I don't expect everyone else to without some actual justification, which again goes into why I want to examine Peter Singer's ethics in more detail so that I can go into an argument about what I actually believe in terms of ethics and why zoophilia can, in some situations, be justified. Uh, there's also a chapter on comparisons to other studies, but really, I've gone over the data both in this study and the sort of synopses of the other studies that Miletski put into the book earlier, so I'm not going to go into that chapter in detail. The last chapter, besides the epilogue, which I'm not going to cover here because, well, it's basically Miss Miletski making comments about what happened after the study, and that's it. The last chapter is the most interesting reading, but again, I'm not going to read out of it because there's no generalizable data there. It's basically more detailed looks into the lives of a number of the study participants, 15 in all. And if you want a cross-section of these people's experiences, I recommend it highly. But I can't really pick one of them and just read it out, because, well, the ones that I would like to pick are too long and too detailed, and frankly, I think that if you want to hear about this, you should buy the book anyway. So that's it for this video. Those of you who have suggestions about what I should do next, put them in the comments section of either the playlist or this video, and I'll see what I can do about them. This is the Erudite Counterfile signing off.